Welcome to Evolve Bow Hunting Outdoors. We're going to start a new series here, bow tuning for deer hunting. We're not going to start out today going through a lot of detail, but we're going to give you some ideas that you need to think about when it comes to bow tuning for deer hunting. When it comes to bow tuning for deer hunting, the best thing and best advice that I can give somebody is bow selection. The bow has to feel comfortable in your hand. You have to be able to hold, and sometimes hold for a long time, the poundage. So you need to take into consideration the bow's let off percentage. Depending on what kind of bow you're getting, the manufacturer will let you know what that is. And then the way the bow feels overall, while you're shooting it, while you're holding it back at full draw, while you're just holding it in your hand. There's all sorts of different grips out there, all sorts of different styles. We are not here to recommend anybody. Everybody evolves as a bow hunter. Over the years, I've evolved. I used to shoot anywhere from a 7-inch brace height. Then I went all the way down to a 5-inch brace height. It is all about what you're comfortable with and what you're accurate with. So let's go over a couple of these things today. First off, let's go through the bow. Okay. This is what we're going to take care of the next couple of weeks, so make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification button. When you hit the notification button every week, we'll go more and more into detail with these bow tuning tips for deer hunting. I'm not talking about 3D archery shooting or anything like that. We're all deer hunters. We all like to go out and hunt. So let's go over bow tuning tips that actually will help the audience that I'm appealing to. So when you go over bow tuning tips, you have to take everything into consideration. Every single thing you do to this bow and yourself accounts for what happens downrange. From your releases, this is a Scott Wolf post release. This is a Cabela's Stand model thumb release. And then you have a back tension release. This is a TrueFire Sear. Okay, those things are going to affect what happens downrange. This thing is definitely going to affect what happens downrange. Your rest, your sight, your stabilizer, the way your grip is on your bow, your D-loop, whether or not you use the kisser button is up to you, your peep sight, everything has an effect on what happens downrange. You yourself are the biggest effect overall. If you're not comfortable with your setup, if you're not comfortable with the way the bow fits in your hand, the way you hold the bow, the way the bow feels, at full draw, the way you release the bow, whether or not you're one of those people that grab the grip and torque your bows, things like that. All of those things have an effect. Over the next couple of weeks, we are going to go through all of this. Step by step, day by day, all the way up till the hunting season starts. If you're thinking about purchasing a new bow, feel free, send me a comment. I'll let you know what my opinion is. I'm no professional. I am just here to try to help those who are just starting in this field, or even those that are experienced in this field, make better choices on what happens with their downrange accuracy. When you get into your bow, my suggestion is you go to a pro shop, you get fitted. Your draw length, that's number one. If the bow doesn't fit you, it's not going to work for you, whether it be too short or too long. There's some people that don't realize that just adding a D-loop, and depending on what kind of release you use, can actually add a 1/2 inch draw to your draw cycle, okay? Or your draw length, I'm sorry. So be cognizant of that. If you go to a pro shop, they're going to know these type of things. So we're going to go through everything real quick today. Go through some of this stuff on the table. Every week, we're going to bring you different stuff and actually show you how to do some of these things. So as we go through, timing on your bow. Mathews has timing holes on their cams. Basically, your cable runs through the center of those holes, and that tells you if your bow is timed properly, your cams are timed properly or not. Then there's stuff like your center shot, where your D-loop is mounted, how far left and right, or how far off of your riser your arrow rest is. All of those things contribute to all of this. If you skip a step, it's going to affect your downrange accuracy, and in that moment of truth, when you're drew back on the deer, possibly a deer of a lifetime, you're going to have to decide whether or not you took the proper steps to go through and properly tune your bow. So let's get more into this. Okay. Let's start with going through and shooting paper tuning. Okay. Paper tuning, I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail. It's one of those things. You shoot an arrow through paper, you got left tear, right tear, up and down, and then you got combination tears. All of that has to do with either number one, your rest, your center shot, your arrows could be fletched wrong, your arrows could be bad depending on if you're buying used arrows or whatever the case may be. So you got to think of things like that. Then you got walk back tune. Walk back tune is one of those things that we will really take time and go through those phases with you on how to complete a walk back tune on your bow. Basically, once you get your sight in, once you get your paper tune in, everything looks pretty good, then you start fine tuning your bow. As you fine tune your bow, what happens is you're going to find out, number one, if your rest is mounted properly, if your shooting form is better, and you should really be able to dial all this technology that goes into these bows. You should be able to dial that thing in to where you're hitting tacks at 20, 30, 40, and 50 yards, depending on what kind of sight you use. So as you go through it, what happens is you go through paper tuning. I take blue painter's tape. I put it north and south on my target, and then I will take blue painter's tape and draw a T at the top of that target. As I draw a T at the top of the target, that's where you're going to start your 20-yard pen at, okay? Your 20-yard pen, once you get it almost fine-tuned at the shop to where at least you're hitting on paper at least say the 10 ring or so, maybe even a little bit bigger. Start fine-tuning that. As don't move your left and right yet. Don't move your left and right. You want the up and down, all that stuff. So get your 20-yard pen set. If you have to move left and right, go ahead, minor adjustments, and get it set. As you walk backwards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards, that's when you're going to start moving your rest. Your rest, you always move the rest in the direction you want the arrow to go. So at 30 yards, use your 20-yard pen where that T is. If you're hitting right of the center tape, you'll move your rest to the left. You move it the direction you want your arrow to go. So if you fire, put your 20-yard pen right at the top of the T, and all of a sudden you are hitting right at 30 yards. Using your 20-yard pen, you just move your rest to the left. A very tiny bit. It does not take much to move that arrow down range. Okay? So you get that centered in a little bit. Go ahead and move back to 40 yards. Still use your 20-yard pen, depending on the size of your target too. This is going to help. You're going to need a bigger target for something like this. Move back to 40 yards. Use your 20-yard pen, top of that T, that blue painter's tape. Everything lined straight up and down, pen-wise. Go ahead and let one fly down range. And if it's moving right, you need to move it right or move your rest a little bit more to the left, just a little bit more. The further back you go, the more you may have to move your rest, or those little movements that you did at 30 and 40 yards is going to bring it in a lot further than it would be if you went 20 yards and then went straight back to 60. You may hit 2 or 3 feet to the right, depending on how bad your sight was set up. So that's paper tuning in a nutshell. Again, click subscribe, click the little bell icon to get notifications, and probably next week we'll actually go a little bit more into detail, and I'll actually show you how to go through paper tuning, and we'll get through it together, because you don't want to do this stuff the day before opening day of your deer season. Now is the time to really start fine-tuning your bow. So when it comes to bow tuning, you can move forward from something like that and get into, well, what kind of sights do I get? What kind of rest do I get? What kind of broadheads do I get? What kind of arrows do I get? All this season, we're going to go over all this stuff in detail with you. You look at some of the sights I got here. This is a Montana Black Gold sight. It's got .29 pens. If you have problems with your vision, a larger pen may be something that you need. Over the years, I found out it was blocking too much of my target. I wanted something smaller, so then I moved into the .19 pens. This is a True Glow sight. You can pick this up at Walmart, Meijer, your pro shops. This is one of their just real basic versions. It has to be something that works for you, okay? You don't need to go out and spend $1,000 to be an efficient hunter, okay? All these marketing ploys and things like that, you don't have to do that. If it works for you, that's what matters, period. We can go into, single pin sights. This is a CBE Vortex Micro Adjust. It's a single pin sight, mounts on the bow. I use this more for my 3D archery tournaments and stuff like that. You don't have to do all of that. Okay, this is a QAD Ultra Rest HDX. Then you get into broadheads. We'll get into those. You've got fixed blade broadheads. You have expandable broadheads. There's all sorts of different expandables on the market today because they fly more like your field points. This is 2 rages, a regular rage and a hypodermic. I got a really, really old rocket here that I used to use. Then you go through your releases, all kinds of releases out there that you can use, and we're going to bring all of this to you this year. This is Evolve Bow Hunting. We want you to evolve into a better, more efficient, more accurate, more humane deer hunter, and we're going to help you with that this year. Stay tuned with us. I'll see you guys next week. We'll come back. We will start to go over some of the mounting techniques on your sights, your arrow rest and things like that, and we'll move forward into a little bit of paper tuning and walk back tuning. Stay tuned, folks. Evolve Bow Hunting Outdoors. We're going to bring it to you this year.